President Cyril Ramaphosa will address the nation at 7 p.m. this evening on developments in South Africa's risk-adjusted response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Ramaphosa's address comes at a time when the country experiences a sustained decline in transmission, and now with speculation that he will move the country to alert level 1. The address follows a meeting of the National Coronavirus Command Council on Monday, a meeting of the President's Coordinating Council on Tuesday, and a special sitting of Cabinet today. All right, let's talk about this further. We have on the line Professor Dirk Kotze to take a look at what we can actually expect from the President's address this evening. Prof, a very warm welcome to you, and as always, thanks for giving us your time here on SABC News.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Just as a start, obviously there is a lot of talk and anticipation. I mean, if I'm just looking at social media, for example, a lot of expectation that, we're moving to level 1. And I wonder if that is an obvious. But really, what are you expecting to hear from the President this evening when he takes to that podium, Prof?
Well, I think the message will consist of a number of elements. First one is that I think he will look back at the progress that has been made so far, that he has done with all the other speeches. Then he will also, reiterate the importance of social distancing, of the masks that we have to wear, the sanitation procedures that we have to follow. And I think in this case, it even becomes more important than maybe even in the past, because it becomes now the fact that the restrictions are reduced means that the onus is more and more on ourselves in order to prevent the spread of the infections. So I think that will be an important component, as he has done in the past. And then he will deal with the reduction in the regulations. One of the ones that I think will be very important to deal with is about international traveling. At the moment, there's also a demonstration in Tshwane and in the union buildings by the artists about the resumption of their activities. That is something that I think will also receive some attention. Gatherings at churches, for example, I think is an important point that will be addressed. And then about the curfew, for example, I'm not sure. I think this is something that might continue. As well as the limitations on the selling of alcohol. So I think it's going to be a mixed message that we will hear.
And, you mentioned the word progress, and I wonder what your analysis really is regarding our progress, just given the fact that there has been talk about, we're saying that the numbers are showing a decline, but some people are saying, well, that's because we're having less tests. We're testing less people for coronavirus, so obviously then the numbers will decrease. And then on the back of that, I also want to ask, Prof, do you think that the move to level 1, and of course we anticipate that this is part of what the President will say this evening, that there is some sort of pressure, whether it's political or otherwise, forcing us to move to level 1?
Well, with regard to progress, I'm obviously not the expert in terms of the statistics and the medical aspects. My profession is political science. But what I hear is that there's less testing taking place, the percentage of positive cases of those who were tested in a percentage-wise, therefore, has decreased, as well as the number of deaths. Now, when we look at the South African instances, it's still high compared to the international standard at the moment, and even the World Health Organization. And that's one of the complications, as I understand it, for opening up the international traveling. But we are still in the highest category in respect of that. So there are certain limitations, certainly. And also the risk of the so-called second wave. And what we are seeing in Europe at the moment, in countries like Spain, for example, like France, and even the Netherlands, is obviously a warning for South Africa. So I think what the message of President Ramaphosa is going to be, yes, we are under pressure, and he is indeed under pressure, especially economic pressure. I've mentioned this demonstration also of the artists, that type of pressure. But at the same time, he has to find a balance between the pressure and, on the same time, caution. And I think he will say to us as the public, no, the onus is on you very much in order to prevent a second wave from happening. So please be cautious. Please be very careful about the wearing of masks and the social distancing and big gatherings also. So in that sense, I think there's a continuation. Since he started reducing or lowering the levels from level 5 to level 4, in all cases, it was on the one hand predicted right in the beginning, but on the other hand, there was constantly pressure on the government from different interest groups.
And just on that note,
reduce it.
And just on that note, Prof, I mean, it must have been quite a test for the president. I mean, this past year, 2020, must have been quite a difficult one, given that the president has had to kind of make rules and people were not happy here and there. And if you were to score him, Prof, in terms of how he's handled, this situation that we found ourselves in, a situation that obviously most world leaders haven't really found themselves in before. What would you say as we anticipate ourselves slowly sort of moving out of all those hard lockdown rules and so forth? What would you say from obviously from a political perspective, Prof?
Well, I would definitely score him above the average of the other international leaders or national leaders, even from the north, from starting with the US, with the UK, with Germany did relatively well. But I think what counts in favor of President Ramaphosa is he was very consistent with his message. He was, in a sense, very honest with us as the public, of saying there were difficult times ahead. They even sort of predicted a peak that was, luckily, it didn't materialize in the same way that it was predicted.
Yeah.
And the way in which the death rate was kept below what was predicted also. And then despite all the pressure, I think President Ramaphosa sort of kept to his promise, and that was more or less that one level should last roughly for about a month. And this is still in line with that schedule that he presented right in the beginning in March. So I think if we listen to him, he is all the time almost lecturing us about what we must do in terms of social distancing, about washing of hands, wearing of masks, and with that he started right from the beginning. If you look at other leaders in other parts of the world, they first, for example, sometimes said, no, it's not necessary. Then they changed their message.
Yeah. Someone
like Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister in the UK, he's a good example of that. Now he's very firm on that. And I think, therefore, I would say President Ramaphosa, despite all the criticism and all the criticism, especially regarding the regulations and the logic of these regulations, I think the outcome in the end is for us as South Africans relatively good.
All right. Prof, let's leave it there. Thank you very much for giving us your time, and no doubt we'll certainly catch up with you at a later stage. Thank you, Prof. Dirk Kotze.